Hello, this is our first lesson and it's on indices. Indices basically mean powers. So 2 to the power 4, with a tiny 4 written above the 2, means there's 4 2's involved in the product. So that's 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 2 to the power 1, that's just a 2 on its own. And often we just leave it off. In fact, we always leave it off. You should know that if there's a 2 on its own, it means 2 to the power 1. So a to the power 3, we often say a cubed. That means a times a times a. Not the same as 3a with a big 3. That means a plus a plus a. And often the two are confused. They're simply conventions for how to write actions of multiplication and addition when we repeat them. All right, so in general, x to the power n. N is called the index or the power. X is called the base, and that x to the power n we say the nth power of x. All right, so have you got all those written in? If not, just check my solution for what you've got to put in. And let's go through the laws of indices. Right, when we multiply 3 squared times 3 cubed, we're going to have 3 times 3 and 3 times 3 times 3. And you should realize altogether there's going to be 5 3's multiplied together. Easy way of doing it is simply to add the powers. Get 3 to the power 5. So 3 to the 2 plus 3, 3 to the power 5. General rule, a to the m times a to the n, add the powers, a to the m plus n. Stop me at any time if you need to look at that again. And I'm not going to tell you again. Just stop me whenever you need to. All right, number 2. Second law, division. 3 to the power 6 divided by 3 squared, or 3 to the power 2. Well, you've got 6 3's on the top multiplied by each other and 2 on the bottom. Lop off 2. 2 of them will cancel on top with 2 on the bottom. It's going to leave you with 4 of them. So a quick rule would simply be 3 to the power 6, take away 2. Subtract the powers when you divide. All right, general rule, a to the m divided by a to the n is a to the m minus n. Right, and the third rule. These are powers of powers rule. We call it the power of power rule. 3 to the power 3, all raised to the power 4. Well, why is it 3 to the 3 times 4? The reason is you've got 3 cubed times 3 cubed times 3 cubed times 3 cubed. Altogether, there's going to be 12 of those 3's. Okay? So, general rule, a to the m, all raised to the n, multiply the powers a to the m times n. Right, our fourth idea is the power 0. Let's see where that comes from. If you've got 3 to the power 4 divided by 3 to the power 4, well, then you've got 3, 3, 3, 3 on top in a product, and the same on the bottom. They will cancel out. The 3's will all cancel out on the top with the bottom, and we'll land up with 1. Okay. But if you decided to use the rule 2, you would subtract those powers. So you would then get in that cloud, by rule 2, 3 to the power 4 minus 4. And that's 3 to the power 0. So you realize, if I use the rule, I get power 0, but the actual answer is 1. So you must realize anything to the power 0 is 1. So let's put that in our rule in the box. A to the power 0 is 1. Okay? Negative powers. How do these arise? Well, look at that. When you've got more 3's on the top, for example, 3 to the power 3, and 3 to the power 5 on the bottom, well, then the top 3 3's in a product, 3 times 3 times 3, the bottom's got an extra 2. So 3 of them on top cancel with 3 on the bottom, and you've got 2 left on the bottom. So you've got 1 left on top, not 0, 1 is left on top, and 3 squared on the bottom. But if you used your rule, let's fill in the cloud there, you'd have 3 to the power 3 minus 5, and that's minus 2. So you realize 3 to the power minus 2 actually means 3 squared in a division on the bottom. Okay, So don't assume that a negative power means the number is negative. It simply means divide. All right, so let's put our rule. A to the power minus n actually means you're dividing by a to the power n. So we write 1 over a to the power n. Right. What about fractional powers? Sometimes you're going to see fractions in powers. Let's see where these come from. Let's start with the cube of a squared. I want you to multiply a squared by itself 3 times. So there we have a squared, a squared all cubed. Now, you know by the rule 3, that's a to the power 6, a squared times a squared times a squared. But if we go backwards, what is the cube root of a to the power 6? The answer is where you started, a squared. But how do we get that with the 6 and the 2? What do we do? How do you get 2 from the 6? There it is, the cube root of a to the 6, it must have been 6 divided by 3, which is a squared. Right. So when we take roots, we have fractional powers. So there's our rule. A to the power m, if I want the nth root of that, I will divide that power m by n. All right, so in that cloud, in the box, you want to write a to the power m over n. Okay, check along with my solutions if you need to. So, the cube root of a will be written as a to the power 1/3. You just have to get used to it. It's another way of writing the cube root of a. The square root of x will be x to the power of a half. Correct. And p to the power 2/3, well, which one's on the bottom? It's the 3. So that's the cube root. The 2's on the top, and that's p squared inside the square root sign. So that's the cube root of p squared. Right. So the new ideas that we're going to hold on to here are negative powers mean flip. So you want to fill that in on that space. Flip when you've got a negative power. A to the power minus 3, flip it over and write a cubed. Forget about the minus now. It's 1 over a cubed. 2 to the power minus 3, flip it over. 1 over 2 cubed. And that's 1 over 8. Right. So if 2 cubed means 8, next to that cloud, 2 to the power minus 3 means 1 over 8. Okay, you should be getting the idea by this stage. What about this? 1 over 3 to the power minus 2. Well, it simply means flip. So up it goes, the 3 squared goes up this time, and it's divided by 1. You flip the whole fraction, and that's 9. Okay, so negative power appears as a division, it actually means a multiplication. Right, remember, fractional powers mean roots. So a to the power half, to revise again, means the square root of a. 25 to the power half means the square root of 25, and that's 5. That goes in the cloud. 8 to the power third means the cube root of 8. What times itself 3 times gives you 8. It must be 2. 2 times 2 times 2 gives you 8. So that's the cube root of. And the next thing to hold on to, x to the power 2/3, the 3 on the bottom says you're finding the cube root. So it's the cube root of what? Whatever's left behind, x squared, the cube root of x squared. Right. So when we have something like 8 to the power 2/3, that means you've got to find the cube root of 8, right, which is 2, and then it's still got an 8 squared there. See, there's still a squared on top. You've then got to square your answer. So 2 squared will be 4. Right. Another way of doing it is to write it as 8 to the power 2/3. You take the 8 and write that as 2 to the power 3. It's a prime number 2. It's 2 to the power 3. It's called the prime base method. You might want to fill that in underneath. This is called the prime base method. So you've got 2 cubed all to the power 2/3. The rule is multiply the powers. So you've got 2 to the 3 times 2/3, and the 3's cancel, leaving with 2 squared, which is 4. Right. Let's combine both those ideas, the fractional power and the negative number. What's 8 to the power minus 2/3? Well, that means do everything that you've just done above, find the cube root and then square, but it ends by flipping your result. So you flip the 4 and get a quarter. Okay, so 8 to the power minus 2/3 means a quarter. Right, and just another note there, 1 to any power is 1. Let me write 1 to the power x is 1. Anything, the cube root of 1 is 1, the fifth root of 1 is 1. 1 to the power 10 is 1. All right, now let's get on with some of our examples. The first example there, you can try it now and then come back to me if you need a chat. Just turn me off in between examples. All right, number 1. Well, you've got to add up all the powers where you multiply, so you should have 1 plus 4 plus 3, and you're dividing by a squared, so we'll subtract that power. Answer, a to the 6th. Try number 2. Right, no problem here again. You add the minus 3 to the 4, and then you should add the 2 times 3. A squared all cubed is a to the 6. So minus 3 plus 4 plus 6, answer a to the 7. Try number 3. Right, best thing here to do is to sort out inside the bracket first. P to the 5 divided by p squared is p cubed. And that's all raised to the power 3. So we've got p to the power 9. Multiply the powers. Number 4. Right, yeah, we've got a negative power on the bottom. Here's a perfect example of what would happen. You've got to subtract powers when you divide, so we'll get 6 subtract minus 2. That's the same as 6 plus 2. Minus is plus. And that's x to the power 8. Number 5. Well, you've got to add the powers because it's a multiply. A half plus 3 halves, that's 3 over 2 is 3 halves, is 4 halves. And that's simply 2. All right, number 6. The square root of k times the square root of k. Well, it's k to the half times k to the half. A half plus a half makes 1, and you land up with k. You should be able to look at that result. If you use square root of k times the square root of k means the square root of k squared. And a square root and a square undo each other. Right. Number 7. Yeah, x to the power 3/4 times x to the power of 1/4. Remember, you divide by the root in the power. 3/4 plus a quarter is 1, and you're finished. Number 8. On the bottom, you get x to the power of 1/4. I'm going to subtract that from the top power, which is 2. You get 2, take away 1/4. And that's 8/4 take away 1/4, which is 7/4. And remember, the power 4 on the bottom there means the 4th root of x to the power 7. Okay, good idea for you to try number 9 now. Just try it out and then come back to me and we can look at the commentary together. We can look at the solutions together as I talk. It's not a bad idea to do it that way. All right, 16 to the power half means the square root of 16. 9 to the power half means the square root of 9. Square root of 16 is 4. Square root of 9 is 3. 4 3s are 12. Right, number 10. 16 to the power of 1/4, and so on. That's the 4th root of 16. 27 to the power 3rd, that's the cube root of 27. Okay, this is one way of doing it. Here's another. The 4th root of 16 is 2, and the cube root of 27 is 3. If you didn't know that, well, you'd have to write 16 as 2 to the power 4 and realize it, and 27 as 2 to the power 3. 2 times 3 is 6 answer. Right, 8 to the power minus 1/3. I'm going to show you 2 different methods for number 11 and 12. Let's look at number 11. Well, that's 8 to the power minus 1, the cube root of that. Now, 8 to the minus 1 is 1 over 8. And the cube root of 1 over 8 you could know straight away is a half. Or you could say the cube root of the top is 1, the cube root of the bottom is 2. All right? Now let's do number 12 in a method that you could also do number 11 if you wished. It's called the prime base method, remember. 32 to the power 2/5. That actually means you want the fifth root of 32, and then you want to square the answer. But watch what I'm going to do. 32 is 2 to the power 5. You can try it on your fingers. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And just get the answer as you go along. I must multiply the powers. 5 times 2/5. The 5's cancel, and you get 2 squared. And that's 4. All right? Right, the last one we'll do like that. 1 over 27 to the power minus 2/3. That really looks like a really difficult example. Let's break it down. Inside the bracket, 1 over 3 cubed. Right. Let's take that 3 cubed to the top. It would change sign in the power. Becomes 3 to the minus 3. We're beginning to believe that that's a rule now. If I decide to flip it over, the power changes sign. Now multiply the powers. You'll get minus times a minus is a plus. And 3 times 2/3 is simply 2. So you get 2 squared, which is 9. All right? Right, there's an exercise for you to do. I hope it all went well. Do the exercise and don't forget to check the solutions when you're finished. Cheerio.